Hey everybody, my name's Ben Skogen. I'm the Pointman product manager at Prostar. And today what I'll be talking about is our software solutions and how they're being used. Well, first of all, what they're out to accomplish, the states and the DOTs and the agencies and the companies that are currently leveraging this technology, and why it's important. It started with Prostar about 5 years ago. Let me go through this here. So I have a background in military and then in the engineering and surveying industry. I do various different train the trainer events for different companies and clients, one of which includes the Colorado DOT. And that was kind of our first step into providing an enterprise-grade platform for a state agency to start accurately mapping utilities in the subsurface space. The DOT in particular has a right-of-way with hundreds of different companies or utility owners represented there that have their utilities along that right-of-way. And so far, the issue has been there aren't as many good records of where those utilities are that CDOT would like to have. And so in order to get a permit, they wanted to, well, let's back up. We worked with CDOT for the last 2 years or so to develop this system. And then as of a couple weeks ago, January 14th or 15th, I believe, CDOT mandated this system in the state of Colorado for all utility owners that have assets along the right-of-way. So in order to get a permit signed off, it needs to go through this system so that CDOT knows with a degree of confidence where those utilities are located at on their right-of-way. So my job is to work with users in the field and then take those requests and features and workflows and requirements into the development team, build those features, and then go back out with the clients and the users and test that. So that's what I've been doing for the better part of 3 years now at Prostar, is working with those field users and those agencies to do that. We've also partnered with Trimble at the corporate level and rolled out an integration with Trimble GPS receivers in order to meet that accuracy requirement that CDOT has, and then got into all of those dealers as well, including Frontier Precision, which we'll be talking about later on in this presentation. If there's any questions, feel free to write them down, raise your hand, interrupt, yell at me, that's fine. I'll be glad to answer them. So agenda real quick, it's not going to take too long, but I want to talk about what Pointman is and how it works, the success that it's seen in the industry, and some of our partners up in even in Minnesota right now, and how this is starting to change not just a new software solution, but changing a mindset in the utility industry of going from paper to digital, or paint to digital, if you will, and creating more accurate records with the intention of reducing line strikes, damages, delays, injuries, things like that. So what is Pointman? It is two things. It is a precision mobile data collector that exists as a mobile app on Android and iOS, and it pairs with those tools, those GPS receivers, as well as pipe locators. It is also a GIS app. So we've created our own GIS system from the ground up to not only collect the data, but collect the attributes, the metadata, and store that on the device. There is also a cloud version that we are releasing called Pointman Pro, and we'll go into what that is as well here in a little bit. So when we talk about what Pointman is out to do, is two things, is to collect the accurate location of those subsurface utilities when they're installed, but also we've got a lot of utilities that were put in the ground prior to even the 70s, where we didn't have a lot of GPS or the strict regulations that we see more coming into play nowadays. And so we need to find out where those are, map them, and or update the existing GIS data that we have that oftentimes, if we're honest, is not as accurate as we hoped it would be. And that's the reason we see those line strikes and things like that. So moving on, the that's what Pointman's mission is in essence. But how we're doing that is very interesting because we're in with that. The Colorado DOT is the first DOT to adopt this system and mandate it. Several other DOTs are in the process of coming on board. But once we have a DOT, we start talking to the 811 center in that state. And then we start talking to the contractors and vendors and utility owners. So this perfect storm, if you will, of DOTs, 811s, and contractors all on the same platform is now starting to become a reality. And we'll go into what that looks like here in a little bit. Prostar started off as a tech startup company with a vision and a couple patents, and we are now a publicly traded company as of January of this year. So it's growing very quickly and multiple different verticals, and so it's exciting to be a part of this. How it works is you pair your tools to a mobile device, Android or iOS. Whether you're using a GPS and or a pipe locator, you can pair both at the same time. So if you're just using a GPS, you can grab the precise location of an asset and pin that to the map, whether it's a point, line, polygon, photo, sketch, or PDF form. You can also pair a pipe locator to grab depths off of a utility. And as soon as you capture a depth, it will also trigger a GPS reading and save all of that together onto that point on the map. So you collect the field data after you've paired your tools. And we support more than just Trimble and Juniper on us, obviously, but this is just a sampling of what we support natively in Pointman. Every major pipe locator, as you can see there, supported on Android and iOS. We have plans to release Windows this year as well. Our goal is to be hardware agnostic. So we support a lot of different receivers so that people and users can leverage the investments they've already made in hardware and not have to buy a specific piece to make it work with Pointman. When I say CDOT mandated this software, they mandated Pointman, but they have an enterprise subscription to it. So they can provide that free to the vendors. You can log in and collect your data there. The only thing you're going to need in the state of Colorado is the GPS required to meet the accuracy requirements, which is 1/10 of a foot or less. So you're looking at an RTK or a VRS correction needed to attain that. Once you collect this data, it's just living on the mobile device. You can export it out in several different GIS formats, or you can upgrade to Pointman Pro and have a real-time connection to the cloud. No need to export anything from the mobile device. It does work offline if you have the cloud version, so you can save everything locally to the device, and then when you're back in the office or back in cellular, you can sync in real time or sync with one button automatically. So we mentioned CDOT. They mandated the software. I wrote it into their code and legislation. And then we've got several other members in the utility industry that have realized the value of collecting accurate data. One of which is Jim Ansbach, and he is actually part of Prostar now. He's the founding governor of ASCE Standard 38. So we're working very closely with him to make sure that Pointman, when you're collecting this data, that it's accurate and complies to regulations in the civil engineering space. Tyler Bristow founded Centerline Mapping. He uses Pointman for his training curriculum, as do several other institutions. We are in Purdue University, Louisiana Tech, CU Denver, and CU Boulder. Currently, among others, Virginia Tech, teaching the curriculum for grad students that are going out into the civil engineering space, how to equip them with the best knowledge of here's why you need more than a paint mark type of thing. Jeff Zeiss has written a couple blogs about Prostar and the Senate Bill 18167 as it pertains to Colorado DOT, and I believe Jeff I saw him on this call. I'm not sure if he's still here, but if he is, hey, Jeff, how you doing? He's also been following Prostar very closely over the last few years, and it's great to have his support. So obviously, digital utility data is helpful if it's accurate, but it can be very detrimental if it's not. So we can actually capture all of the information you see on the screen and more the difference between, sub-meter and survey grade here, or mapping and survey grade, is shown in the accuracies here so this is the GIS portion of Pointman, storing these attributes, and then using that in another GIS system after the fact. So this is good for users. It proves you did the work. It proves you did the work accurately. This has been verified over the last 3 or 4 years by surveyors, and has been found to be extremely reliable because you're already leveraging something that's already trusted, like Trimble or some other GPS unit. It provides a better business decision. This business decision is a dig or no dig decision, to whether or not you want to take on that liability and start digging. So having this data at your fingertips out in the field is very, very helpful. In fact, we can pull data from different data sources at the same time. Because this is our own GIS system and we built it on OGC standards, we can connect to Esri in real time, Bentley Cloud Connect in real time, Civil 3D, any sort of, and we mentioned it earlier, publishing a WMS or WFS service, we can connect to those as well. So you can put on multiple different data sources at the same time, get what I call a better situational awareness out in the field of what's around you. And that is what's proving itself to minimize line strikes. We're on a project in the Denver area right now. Took their line strikes from 150 a year down to 10 after they started using the system. And so they're realizing millions of dollars in savings, as well as injuries and loss of time. This helps surveyors understand the data so that they can start to trust it more, and it's shareable. It's very quick and easy to train. I can have a crew on site up and running before lunch, collecting survey grade data via Pointman for utilities. It's utility focused. This is not a replacement for a surveying application like Trimble Access. This is for utilities and subsurface utility engineering specifically. It is affordable and low cost, and we'll get into that. Not necessarily the pricing per se, but you'll understand here in a little bit how Pointman on the cloud end is different from anything else on the market. We have a very good team of engineers, surveyors, geodesists, utility engineers on staff at Prostar to make this work and make it work well. As mentioned, Jim Ansbach is part of Prostar as well on the regulation side. And then we have a fairly robust team of support technicians and dealer networks as well. Pointman Pro is the cloud version, so you have field and office capability. This is the first time that I'm aware of that you can get a self-serve, sign up on your own, swipe a credit card, and you have your own personal cloud in less than 30 seconds. So very powerful tool. Log in on the website, and you can check all of this out on pointman.com. But this is the way that DOTs, 811s, and contractors are working together to make sure that utilities are not getting hit, that better data is being collected, that we're starting to actually map the subsurface assets and in an accurate way. Once you log in, you have a ton of data at your fingertips. This is an example of Colorado DOT, just one data set turned on. There's several other folders that are not turned on in there, but you see the same exact view in the field as you do in the office. This data is actually pulling live from an Esri environment, so as well as the Federal Railway Database, Federal Railway Administration, so that when the CDOT users are out in the field working on railroad crossings, this is just one example that I'm showing, they can actually update the crossing information in Pointman out in the field. It comes into the office for review, and then after review gets shipped back to FRA through an API access. Pointman has a full-on enterprise system built for state organizations, large construction and infrastructure companies such as Kiewit and Jacobs, just to name a few, are rolling this out. It's very simple to use, very simple to train. You do not need the learning curve that something like Esri has, although it is not designed to be a replacement for Esri. It's designed to connect to it. to leverage all of that information out in the field. You can see on that laptop screen color-coded land parcels, utility line work, forms, drone imagery is supported in there. Augmented reality is coming soon for utility, so you can look under the ground and see all that data, all the more reason to have it to be accurate. And this is role-based access. So this is all permissions-based, and you can give permissions down from the project level to the layer level to the feature level, and lock it down to who gets to see what. If you have vendors in your system who are picky about their data, we've solved that problem. This is also SOC 2 compliant, which is the same data standard, security standard that banks use. We go through that compliance audit every year. So it's the most robust, secure platform that you can have. And it's also built on the most modern framework, which is Amazon Web Services. As mentioned, up in Minnesota and down in Colorado, Frontier Precision is our dealer. We are working with them directly to help customers get into the equipment that they need in order to get this done accurately. And WSB is our first Pointman enterprise user up in that area as well. So looking forward to working with them and rolling this out state by state until we're all accurately collecting these utilities. That's the end of my talk. If there's any questions, we can open it up for discussion.
Ben, thank you very much. We are up on time, but I think, Travis, I believe you're probably going to run short on your presentation for today for your group talk.
Yeah, that's fine. You can steal some of my time. Okay,
so let's leave the floor open for another 3 minutes or so, and we'll take it from there.
I've got a quick question for you, especially since you mentioned WSB. The link between the device and the pipe locator receiver that you're talking about, is that link then via Bluetooth?
It is. Yep. Bluetooth is supported on Android and iOS.
Yep. So what information, I know you mentioned the depth of cover, what information is being relayed via Bluetooth from the locator?
Good question. So we're grabbing the depth, which means, I'll just go through the locator first. The depth, the frequency, the current, the mode that the tool was on, all of those, and the name of the tool itself, so that we know what was captured. We can grab anything out of that Bluetooth string, but that's currently what we're grabbing. On the GPS side, we're measuring the ground shot, not at the top of the pole. So we're subtracting that off so that you're taking a depth measurement from the ground, but we are giving them the ground elevation and then the depth reading. We're not giving them the elevation of the feature because we don't know how big that pipe is under the ground. So we're just letting the user handle that.
So the ground shot is being taken from the locating receiver?
Yes. You're measuring, you're measuring from the ground down to the utility using the locator.
Sure. And your long lat location is the locator.
Correct.
So my question for you, I'm just trying to figure out first which true measurements are being taken via that Bluetooth connection. My next question is what's the margin of error that's been calculated for that Bluetooth communication?
So that's a good question. We're relying on the depth information from the pipe locator itself, but we're not pulling the GPS off the pipe locator. We're pulling the GPS separately off of a separate receiver that's usually up on a pole. Like if we're talking survey grade, we'll have a 2-meter survey pole, standard pole with a GPS on there. We'll subtract from the phase center of the GPS receiver down to the ground. And from there, we will take the depth reading off the pipe locator.
Okay, so in this instance, we're talking about 3 separate pieces of equipment being on site, the locating receiver, the mobile device, and the survey equipment.
That's correct. So we don't support total stations at this time, but we do support GPS survey. So you can actually get down to RTK quality or RTX if you have the Trimble subscription. So we can get down to a couple hundredths of a foot.
Great. So I would be interested in speaking further with you too, because you mentioned WSB. They are actually a customer of ours for locator equipment as well that will be capable of pairing for this purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
I can share my email. It's actually right here on the screen. That's my direct line. So feel free to get a hold of me and we can set something up.
Ben, we got one more question we'll take, and it's from Keith Novi. Keith, go ahead.
Hey Ben, I'm Keith. I'm the damage prevention manager for CenterPoint Energy here in Minnesota. You had mentioned a reduction from like 100 damages to 10, and don't quote me, I don't know. What are you equating that to? What did your product do to reduce the damages? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. So this was a 6-mile stretch along I-70, a $6 billion highway relocation project with thousands of utilities. And so all of those utilities had to be test holed or potholed. And Pointman captured all of the locations of those potholes. So now, and using a survey grade GPS unit. So now they know where those utilities are. Before they weren't doing that at all. They had paper sketches from CAD that had unknown quality to them. And so they're not hitting the lines as much anymore. There are 23,000 potholes in the Pointman enterprise system on that project right now. And because of that, they only had 10 line strikes in the first year as opposed to 150. And that's per year.
So you're saying that the excavator would be out there with this image and that's with this accurate data, that's what's saving. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So not just the potholes, but the line in between it as well. When you pothole it, you can now better find the line in between it using a pipe locator and connect those two pothole dots together with a line. So, I mean, there's a staggering amount of data in those layers in that enterprise system that an excavator sitting in the behind the bucket can look on a tablet mounted in there and see where everything is around him. So that's the major reason for that.
That's the CDOT, right? Just the excavator is only the Colorado DOT that's using it, correct? It's not open to all the excavators.
It is open to any vendor and contractor on the CDOT project. CDOT's part of this project in Denver, but this is a private company's project, and CDOT's on it because their right-of-way runs through there. Basically, they went from 4 lanes to 8 lanes and moved everything in a 6-mile stretch through downtown Denver, and that includes things like NASDAQ fiber lines. I mean, it was a very high-profile job that's still going. It's nearing the end of this phase, or completion, but they self-insure this private company, and so they want to know where everything is before they start working because they have to budget in fees for fines and things like that, but they're saving millions of dollars a year with this.
What kind of static did you get from the contract locators?
I'm sorry?
Did you get any static from contract locators implementing this?
At first, because the legislation wasn't super clear in Colorado about how it works, they thought they were required to buy Pointman, which they're not. Their Pointman enterprise with CDOT is free for all of those people that have assets on their right-of-way. This is something that they can get on their own for their other projects. So once they leave the CDOT project, they have their own cloud system and they can transfer the data from the CDOT system that they collected into theirs and use their own system for other work.
Did they have any pushback though? I mean, did they come back and say, hey, why it's going to take a lot more time for us to do. It's going to slow down our process. We need a higher ticket price or do something.
No, because we've had about a dozen webinars training all the vendors. And like I said, it's less than an hour call and everyone's up and running on the system. Very simple to use. When they sign up, CDOT sends them an initial 10-minute video to watch, which covers most of it. And then they're just in the system. So it's not been bad at all compared to what I thought it was going to be. We've had maybe 4 or 5 angry calls that turned into being fine by the end of the call. But I mean, there's 1,500 users. So that's pretty good.
Ben, thank you so much for presenting today. And as I indicated, we'll be sure to get your presentation up on our website so that we can pass it around to others. So thank you again.
Absolutely. Yeah. Feel free to contact me at this information on the screen, and I'll be happy to answer questions or set up a demo with anyone interested. Lastly, real quick, Jack Calvin at Trimble is the DOT director. And if you have questions, you can reach out to him from the DOT side about how it works if you're interested in looking at this solution.
Thank you.
Thank you.